So I just came across this one interesting story a few days ago, which is A Rose for Emily by William Faulkner. And this story is kind of confusing at first because it's not told in order, but it jumps back and forth in time and is being narrated by the town instead of one character. And today I'm going to talk about the plot of this story. So, for the exposition, the story actually starts at the end, which is Miss Emily's death, and when the whole town goes to her funeral. But it's not because they were close to her, but they were curious. And from there, we learn that Emily lived alone in this old decaying house and barely interact with others. The town always watched her, but never really helped her. We also get to see the flashback of her past, especially her father, who was very controlling and chased away all her potential suitors. This already explains why Emily ended up so lonely. Next, rising action. As the story goes on, we are shown to a different moment from Emily's life. After her father dies, she refused to accept it and even keep his body for a few days. Later, she met Homer Barron, a northern construction worker, a Yankee, and they start spending time together. But the town immediately start gossiping because Homer doesn't fit Emily's social status. Things start to feel unsettling when Emily buys an arsenic from the druggist, but refuses to explain why. The town assumes she's going to kill herself. But then she also buys a man's clothing and a silver toiletry set with the initial HB on each piece, which make the town think they are going to get married. After that, Homer suddenly disappears, and Emily slowly cuts herself off completely from the outside world. So, for the climax, it happened after Emily dies. It's when the townfolk finally open a locked room upstairs in her house, and that's when they found Homer Barron's rotten corpse lying in bed. This is the moment where everything clicks and the truth finally comes out. So for the following action and resolution, it turned out the room is a preserved bridal bedroom, which tells us that Emily had poisoned Homer so he wouldn't leave her. The most disturbing detail is a strand of a gray hair found on the pillow next to his body. That implies that Emily has been sleeping beside the corpse for years. In the end, the story shows Emily not just as someone evil, but as a really tragic character shaped by loneliness and her refusal to accept changes. So yeah, basically the plot is a slow reveal of a secret that the town ignored for years. And that's it from us. A quick, brief explanation of the story A Rose for Emily.
Now, with me, Afina. Let's get ready with me while I'll talk about the character's portrayal of this short story. Let's go. Okay, first, let's talk about Emily Clayton, a soft girl but mentally unstable. I'm prepping my skin using Mary Kay Hydrating Moisturizer. So, Emily is basically a girl who lives in the past. In the short story, she is described as a fallen monument, meaning people respect her, but from far. No one actually wants to be close with her. After her father died, she isolated herself, like ghosting the society completely. It is because she could not accept her father's death, and later she also could not accept being abandoned. Do you get it? Please get it. Physically, Emily is described as small, fat, and bloated in the short story. Meanwhile, in the short film, she's shown as tall and slim. Completely different. Different look, same energy. Both are lonely and emotionally broken. Yeah, for the base, I am using Skintific Perfect Skin Tint in code Ivory02. Let's continue with the blusher and also some of Emily's portrayal that I couldn't finish earlier due to the advertisement. So, I don't know what blush is this. Something my mom gave me. So, Emily represents tradition, duty, and the old South. But inside, she's just a woman who is scared of being alone. So sad. She is very I'm fine, but not fine at all. Poor her, poor Emily, poor me. Let's continue with Homer Baron to reflect the charismatic one. So, in the short story, Homer is a northerner and the foreman of a construction company. He is described as tall, dark, loud and confident. Main character energy, right? So Homer, he is popular, outgoing, and everyone notices him. By that, he becomes Emily's sweetheart. But the problem is, he doesn't look serious, and everyone know it. In the short film, Homer looks very different from he is described in the short story. In the film, he's shown as a white man with light hair, not very tall, and honestly, his face looks kinda like sweet talk. Like, he knows how to talk, but we're not sure.
Hi everyone, today we're gonna talk about A Rose for Emily by William Faulkner. So the first one, I'm gonna talk about the themes. The main theme in this story is loneliness and isolation. Okay, Emily's father always controlled her when she was young, and after his death, the town keep distance themselves from her. So for the second themes in this story is control, especially her father's control over her life. So the story shows tradition versus change, where Emily represents the past and refuse to move on. Okay, the next one we're gonna talk about the atmosphere. The story has a dark and gloomy atmosphere, so though it has a old house, quiet moment and slow pacing make the story feel very mysterious, and this help create tension and leads to the shocking ending.
So for my part, I will explain about the narrative structure of the story. So the narrative structure of A Rose for Emily is non-linear, which means the story is not told in chronological order. The video uses flashback to show Emily's past and present. So at the beginning, the exposition introduced Emily as an old woman living alone in a big old house, and the town sees her as mysterious. The rising action happens when the video shows Emily's past, including her controlling father and her relationship with Homer Baron. The scene where Emily buys poison creates suspense. The climax occurs at the end of the story, when Emily dies and the townspeople discover Homer's dead body in a locked room. And the last one is the following action and resolution, explain Homer's disappearance and reveal the truth about Emily's action.
For my personal opinion of the plot, honestly, I found it very unsettling, but in a good way. At first, the story is very confusing, but as I went through both short story and a short film, I eventually get to understand the plot. And it's quite interesting. I like how the story didn't explain everything directly, but instead they asked the reader to solve the puzzle on their own. The ending especially changed all my view of the whole story, which makes the plot feel intentional.
Talking about my opinion of the story, personally, I find the short story is more understandable than the film. because when I read the short story, I actually could describe Emily and the other characters more clear. The written descriptions actually helps me understand their personalities, emotions, and roles in the story. However, when I watched the film, I had some difficulty understanding the plot because I had to watch the film over and over, again and again, about 3 times, because the story felt confusing. I don't know if others actually agree with me or not, but that's my opinion, right? At first, I could not clearly recognize the characters or understand their roles. The film moves quickly and depends a lot on visual cues, which made it harder for me to follow. So, in my opinion, the short story is more effective.
In my opinion, Emily is more of tragic character than a villain, because her actions are influenced by isolation and lack of emotional support. I also think that the town plays a role in her downfall because they judge her instead of helping her. So overall, the story shows how refusing to accept the change can be harmful.
Is personal opinion. So I think the video version of A Rose for Emily is dark but very effective. The non-linear storytelling makes the story more interesting and keeps the audience curious. I think the video successfully shows how loneliness and fear of abandonment affected Emily's mental state.
As we going through the story, we agree that the short film version is more impactful because it's more clearer and easier to understand. What the short story version, it can be quiet and confusing, and it takes time for some reader to actually understand the actual plot of the story.
Answering to how would the story change if Homer or Emily's father becomes the center of the story? I think the story would change a lot if Homer or Emily's father was the center of the story. Because imagine if the story focused more on Homer, Homer's point of view. It would focus more on his freedom and carefree lifestyle, right? The story might feel less mysterious and more about a man who does not want to be tied down, I guess. And Emily may appear more controlling and frightening rather than tragic. Okay, what if the father is the center of the story? I think the story would focus on control and authority. We could see how his strict behavior actually shaped Emily's character and emotional growth. I think it might help readers understand why Emily becomes isolated and afraid of being abandoned later in her life, right?
From my perspective, if Homer Baron were the main character, the story would be less mysterious. Emily would appear more dangerous and the ending would feel more shocking because we see events from his point of view. And if Emily's father was the main character in the story would highlight control and authority because this would help us understand how his strict parenting caused Emily's isolation.
I think my group really enjoyed how the story slowly revealed the truth through flashback. We also found the ending very surprising and shocking, especially the discovery of Homer's body, because it completely changed our understanding of Emily's character.